Hey everyone, so this is just to recap some of the stuff that we did in class today, particularly with GitHub, because you're going to need to use that for your assignment for Friday evening. So the first step, depending on what computer you're working on, is you want to make sure that your computer actually has Git on it. A lot of you may have this. If you don't, I'll show you a place where you can download it. It's a pretty straightforward install. But basically, if you open up your terminal window, remember on a on a Mac, that means going to the spotlight in the top right corner of the screen and typing in terminal and then opening that program. On a Windows machine, that's going to mean going to the start menu and searching CMD, which stands for command or command line, and then using that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just type Git, and I can tell because I get all this output that in fact Git is on this machine. If it weren't, I would come to this page. I'll put a link to this, but if you Google, download Git, this is the wrong article. Download Git. We can see that you can just go straight actually just to the Git from the Git SCM, which is a computer organization that manages it. Or maybe it was on my, that's what it was here. So if you come to set up Git here, then it will point you to this link. Don't install the GitHub for Mac thing. That's a graphical user interface. We're going to use terminal throughout this semester, so we want you to get comfortable with that. It is honestly the most straightforward and universal way to use Git, and frankly, most of the software I've seen for it is not very helpful. So now we're going to go, I'm just going to review the process that we used for sort of creating a repo and getting started. So if you remember in our one of our key commands here for Git is ls, right? So this is going to show me where I am. Now, I can see if I look to the left of my $ prompt here that I'm in Susan E. McGee. That's a user on my computer. If you are on a lab machine, you're probably going to see your uni. But when I do that ls command, I can see that the desktop here is one of the options. So I'm going to use cd for change directory, desktop, right? And I'm going to use my tab key so I don't have to type everything out and I don't run into typo problems. And then I'm going to see there's a bunch of stuff here. I am going to now create a new directory that's going to be my GitHub repo for this example. So I'm going to say make directory dataviz, right? And I can see if I look at my folder, I have now got this new dataviz folder on my desktop, and I can change. Now you can see when I tried to do that, it doesn't know. So it's actually, if I hit, what did I hit there, enter? I guess I hit tab. It showed me all of the options that match that set of strings. So actually in this case, I do have to go all of dataviz because I have something called data visualization already. So now I'm in that directory. So now we're going to go to the part where we actually set up, we create our HTML file. Many of you will have this, if you were pushing up to the repo, to your repo in, if you're pushing up to your repo during class, then you can just clone from there, but this is just, again, to remind you of the process the first time you go about it, and you want to create a new repo or initialize it. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to go to File, New from Template in Aptana, choose HTML, oops, New HTML, here we go. And I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm going to save this to the local file system. And I'm going to navigate to my dataviz folder and save this as, I'm going to call this variables example.html. I won't get all the way there in this case. Right, so here we go. I've made a couple of changes. I can see now if I minimize that and I'm in my dataviz folder in terminal, if I do ls, I can see that, yep, now that HTML file is there. So then I'm going to come back to my GitHub account, which is not there. So I've logged into my GitHub account here. I'm in my GitHub account, and I'm going to go up to this Create New and choose New Repository. And I'm going to make sure that the name of the repository that I create here matches exactly the name of my, oops, where did I put it? The name of my folder, dataviz, right? Right, okay. And I'm going to say this has example files. Okay, and don't worry about the README thing. The README file is one that that describes that says a little bit about the repo. I like to do it on Git and on GitHub rather than in the command line. So yeah, we'll discuss that another day. But anyway, I can do this, just hit create repository, and I can see that that's there. And if we look, I'm going to take that opportunity to copy that that link right there, because as we know, I'm going to need that in a minute. So back here, I now have, I'm in my folder. I've got the repo, the remote repo, ready to receive files. But first, of course, I have to initialize. So git init. Right? I've now initialized that empty git repo, and I want to say git add, and I want to add my HTML file. And now I can say git commit, right? I've made some basic changes. Let's see, tweaked the, what did I actually change there? Tweaked the h1 tag, right? And then again, I always have to tell it the name of the file, and the name of the file is pretty much always last. With git commands. So that's just something to keep in mind, right? It's like we're kind of used to, it's sort of subject, verb, object, right? It's like git commit, and then this flag, this message flag, and then what am I committing? I'm committing this file. In my case, it's called variables example. Okay, it's saying this. So again, if you run into that global config issue, you will have to do that once on your own machine. Just follow the directions carefully. And again, you can also refer to this section of the setup Git thing. Now, the one thing that I am not doing is caching the password. You could certainly cache your password on your own machine if you like. Would definitely not recommend doing it on a shared machine. Just because I wouldn't recommend that. But yeah, so that's how, so this is the bit that we ran into when we got those errors, so you might have to set this on your machine the first time, but once you set that once, you don't have to do it again. That's one of the reasons I wasn't seeing that in class. And so now I've gone ahead and committed it. I can say git status at any time to see if anything's happened. For example, I haven't even pushed this repo yet, but what if I was like, oh, wait a second, you know, it's silly for me not to change, you know, best page ever, right? You know, it's silly for me not to change this. Now, you can see I haven't pushed it up to the repo yet, but I have committed it to my working directory, right? So the working directory, I've committed it to my local repo, my local directory, right? So I did put in that commit message. So just a second ago, when I had committed it before I changed anything, and I said git status, it said nothing to commit, working directory clean. That means everything, there's nothing different between the file as it is now and the file as it was at the moment that you committed it. Now I've made a change to that file. If I choose git status, it's going to say, hey, look, yeah, actually this thing has been modified, and so I can then. So here I can say, oh, right, you know, I actually made a change. I want to make sure that that gets pushed to my repo. So I can actually use the up arrow key here to sort of scroll through my more recent commands. Now remember, you're not going to be able to use, you can only use the left and right arrows to kind of scroll through the text, but I can actually use this to say tweet the title tag, right? And then sort of reuse that command. And now I have a second commit. So I can commit as many times as I want to my local directory while I'm working, and then I only have to push it to the remote repo once, or as often as I want to push it to the remote repo. But I can make lots of commits on my local computer and then save it up or push it up only when I feel like it, basically, or say when I'm finishing a particular session or I'm leaving that computer or something like that. So now I'm going to have to say, this is where I'm going to have to set the origin. So I'm going to have to say git, I might have to refer to my notes here. Hang on a second. Okay, so I'm back at my notes here. So I have it's git remote add origin, right? So that's where I tell this repo, I tell it where I want it to live on the GitHub server. So come back here, and if you recall, when I created this, I was able to sort of copy and paste exactly the URL of that remote repo that I generated, that I set up. And so I can come back here and I say git remote add origin, and I can actually paste that in, which is pretty handy. And again, no news is good news. It's not complaining at me, which is great. And so then I can just say git push origin master, and it's going to say, tell me about yourself, and I'm going to say, here's my username, and here's my password, and I get this nice things are happening, etc., etc. And if I come back to my repo, I of course need to reload it. But there we go. Now, imagine that I'm on a different computer. I have this saved up. Now, I'm on a different computer, which means what, of course? It means that, oops. It means that, sorry, just quitting out of Aptana. Right, so now imagine I'm on a different computer. Kablooey, I've deleted that. There is no DataViz folder, but I'm on a new computer and I want to be able to work with it, so I want to clone that repo. So once again, I want to make sure, I want to go ahead and get up my GitHub repo as it exists on the web. And the place where I can find that HTTPS URL down here, see it says HTTPS clone URL. So again, I can copy that from here once I've logged in. And on my new computer, we'll pretend that I just got here. I'm going to start a new terminal session. And so, of course, I have to cd desktop. Well, I mean, I don't have to, right? But that's where I prefer to do it. And then I just say git clone, paste in that thing, and it's all done. And voila, we see, yep, there is my HTML file again. If I want to make a change to it, of course, I do the exact same process. I don't have to set the origin this time because the clone command tells it where the origin is. You're cloning it from the origin, so it already knows once you've cloned it where the origin is. So if you have changes to push, you can just say git push origin master. So hopefully that's a helpful review of what we did with Git this afternoon or this morning. The rest of the material should be pretty well covered in the videos that you watched before class last week, or that you watched last week before classes today. So please refer to those for sort of a refresher on the material for your exercise for Friday, your assignment for Friday. If you have specific questions, please feel free to post them to Lore. We prefer that to direct email only because a lot of times more than one person has the same question, and it's helpful if everybody can see the answer. That's pretty much it. So looking forward to seeing your assignments and looking forward to seeing your redesigns tomorrow. Take care.